Welcome to the next episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. My name is Marta, I'm your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin, take a breath. There's nothing you need to do to be ready for this. Just settle in and let yourself land. Today, I want to talk about being a sensitive child without anyone to hold it, about what that costs and what the work of mediumship development is really for. This is more a personal episode than usual, so meet it gently. I want to tell you about a child. She was small, 4 or 5 years old. She slept in a room with a window that looked out over a garden. Most nights, before she fell asleep, she would lie very still and watch the door. She was watching the door because she had learned that the door was where things happened. Sometimes in the corner of the room, a figure would appear, an old woman in a headscarf. To the child, she looked like Baba Yaga from the fairy tale, the witch in the woods, the one you don't want to meet. She would lean over the bed. She would not need to speak. Her presence alone was enough to keep a small body rigid, awake, trying not to be seen. Sometimes the child felt herself being pulled toward the attic, as if her soul itself were being lifted out of the bed and drawn upward against her will, toward a place in the building she didn't want to go. This was not occasional, this was many nights. The child didn't know then what I would only learn as an adult. The old woman in the headscarf was her great grandmother, and her great grandmother had lived and died in that very building. The child was sleeping in a place where this woman had once lived, breathed, suffered, and crossed over. And the woman on the other side of that threshold was coming back to the room where her great granddaughter now slept, leaning over the bed of a child who couldn't possibly know who she was. And that child was me. I want to tell you this not as a quirky biographical detail. I want to tell you because it is, I think, the heart of what I now teach about what it actually means to be a sensitive child without containment, about what it costs, and about what the work of mediumship development is really for. And I want to be honest about the rest of it too, because the great grandmother was not the only thing. I saw other shades, other figures, other presences in rooms. I knew in my body when someone was going to die. I would feel it as a pull and knowing, a certainty I couldn't explain. I would tell my family I had to make a phone call to a particular person or go and visit them, and within days, sometimes within hours, that person would have crossed over. And when they died, I would still speak to them. They would still speak back. I was not imagining this, I was doing it. I lived in a family that was not, in many ways, a safe place to be a child. I'll not tell that story in full here, but what I will say is that at night, my soul learned how to leave my body. I know now what to call it. I didn't then. I flew. I would lift out of bed and hover over the neighborhood, looking down at it from above, and then, often suddenly, I would feel a jolt as my body pulled my soul back into itself. And I want to be clear in case anyone is hearing this and wondering, these were not dreams. I know the difference. They never had the texture of dreams. They had the texture of fact. I know I astro traveled. There were nights when I couldn't move, sleep paralysis, the body held down, the pressing weight on the chest, the unmistakable presence of something that wasn't kind, the fear that has no scream because the body cannot work the throat. There were times the contact was attack, spirits that were not loving ancestors, spirits that were unsettling and heavy and they meant me no good. I was a small child, alone, doing all of this. Around me, the adults spoke about spirit casually. She's watching over you. She must be proud of you. If only she could see you now. The kind of phrases that get said over coffee, at funerals, in passing. The cultural comfort vocabulary of a place where the dead are invoked, but in honesty, not really believed in. The adults couldn't say the words. They didn't have to live inside the experience. I did. I was the only person in the room who actually believed what everyone else was saying. And I was also the only person in the room who couldn't say what was happening to me. Because the moment I tried, I was told it was a nightmare. I was told to go back to sleep. I was told kindly enough that this was not real. So I started sleeping with the light on. I want to name what that does to a child because it is the heart of what I now teach. It is not just that she learns to keep quiet. She does, of course. Within a few years, she has learned to nod when adults explain reality to her. She has learned to perform a version of normalness that protects her from being considered to be strange or troubled or dramatic. The deeper damage is that she learns to be afraid of her own connection to the spirit realm, not of the world, of herself, of what is moving through her, of what she is at her own core capable of perceiving. She comes to associate her sensitivity with terror, with the unknown, with being held down at night by something she cannot name. And when, as an adult, she finally meets a spiritual conversation that says, embrace your gifts, she's being asked to embrace something that for years almost broke her in the dark. And that is the inheritance many of us bring to this work. And I want to tell you about the moment much later when the headscarf woman changed. It happened slowly, not in a single revelation. I built over years a different relationship with spirit through mentors, through grounding, through learning to discern what was mine, what wasn't, what was loving, what was not, through learning to hold a boundary in the unseen as clearly as I now hold one in waking life, through identity work, slow and patient, that gave me a self who could meet the unseen without losing herself in it. And one day, the figure of the old woman in the headscarf came back into my awareness, and I understood her differently. She was not haunting me. She was leaning over my bed because she had nowhere else to be seen. She had died in that building. The family who came after her didn't look up. They spoke her name at funerals and forgot about her at breakfast. And here was a small great granddaughter sleeping in the room of a building she had loved, and the child could see her. The child was the first member of the family in generations who actually saw her. She frightened me because she didn't know how to soften herself for a child, because no one taught her either, because she was reaching for connection the only way she could, and the reach itself was too much for a small body to hold. She just wanted to get to know me. I want to sit with that because it is the thing I keep coming back to. A spirit who frightened a child was, in the end, a great grandmother who wanted to meet her family. The pulling toward the attic was, in the end, a pulling toward where she had lived. The headscarf, the looming, the Baba Yaga shape was the only image she had left to reach a great granddaughter who could see her. And the child was terrified of her, became eventually the woman who could meet her with steadiness, who could say, yes, I see you, I hear you, You're welcome. I know who you are. And in that meeting, something on both sides settled, hers and mine. I want to say something to anyone listening who recognizes herself in this. If you were a child who saw things, who knew things, who flew at night, who was held down by what felt like weight, who spoke to dead, who those who crossed over and was told you were imagining it, you are not broken. You were not too much. You were not making it up. You were a fully intact, fully sensitive, fully open being who needed steadier company than you happen to have. The grief of this is real. Most of us didn't come to this work because the world made us feel safe. We came to this work because we were already in it as children, alone, and we have spent years trying to make sense of what we were given without translation. The good news, the news I'm still learning to live inside myself, is that the company you needed then is the company you can offer yourself now. And you do not have to do it alone any longer. And I want to offer something practical because I don't want this to stay theoretical. If you're sensing the unseen and it is destabilizing you, more access is not the answer. More access has never been the answer for anyone whose foundation is not yet steady. The work in the order that actually holds is this: nervous system regulation first, grounding practices second, discernment third, identity work, the slow becoming of a self who can be present with spirit without losing herself throughout all of it. Then, and only then, the development of, well, some people call them gifts. I don't like that word. Development of an ability to connect with the other side. I want to say something I don't say often. Not all spirit contact is positive, benign. The industry tells you it is, and I'll not. I have lived through enough of what is unkind in the unseen to know that the loving spaces have to be cultivated, boundaries have to be set, discernment has to be practiced. The capacity to know what to let in and what to keep out is the difference between mediumship development that holds for a lifetime and mediumship development that destabilizes someone and leaves her worse than when she started. This is why I will not develop that connection with the spirit world in someone who is not grounded, not as a gatekeeping move, as an act of care, because I know what it cost me to do this without containment. I will not preside over someone repeating that pattern. I want to come back to the child one last time. She didn't need to be told her experience was not real. She didn't need a fairy tale to map onto her terror. She didn't need to be sent back to sleep. She needed someone to sit beside her calmly and say, "Yes, you saw that? Yes, that is your great grandmother. She's allowed to be here. You are allowed to be afraid. And I am going to teach you slowly how to be in this world that you are clearly already part of. You don't have to figure it out alone." Many of us didn't get that. So, as adults, we have to become that presence for ourselves. And we have to find the company of others who can hold this with us without flinching. And what I came to understand eventually is that connection with the other side, it doesn't have to be performed or proven. It needs to be held. And this is what the Psychic Mediumship Foundation course is, not a fast track, a foundation, the grounding, the discernment, the boundaries, the steadiness underneath the sensitivity, taught slowly in the company of others who are also returning to themselves. I also hold intuitive development sessions and an intuitive circle. And what I'm offering in those spaces is the company, the knowledge that the child needed. Feel free to visit my website, martathemedium.com, and under the section courses, you can see details about the Psychic Mediumship Foundation course. Under the section mentorship, you have all the details about psychic mediumship development, private sessions, and under courses as well, there is information about how to apply for Intuitive Circle. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And if something here met you, as always, you're welcome to sit with it. Not that I have to tell you. But sometimes I feel like it's nice to be reminded you don't have to rush. You can just stay with whatever you've experienced today. And if you'd like to keep these conversations close, you're welcome to follow along whatever you're listening, wherever you're listening, whatever, hopefully to this conversation. Yes, I will be here again next week. Until then, take good care of yourself. Thank you for today. Bye.